So tonight's Fireside Chat will be moderated by my good friend Kyle Hybl, who is the president and CEO of the Pomar Foundation and vice president of the Garden City Company. Kyle is chairman emeritus of the University of Colorado System Board of Regents, where he served from 2007 to 2018. He currently serves as the chairman of the National Cybersecurity Center, corporate secretary of Junior Achievement USA, and sits on the board of the American Council of Young Political Leaders. In 2018, Kyle was appointed to the Air Force Civic Leaders Program. He's a former U.S. Air Force captain and judge advocate, and he earned both his bachelor's and Juris Doctor degrees from the University of Colorado Boulder. Joining Kyle on stage will be two exceptional leaders. Frederick J. Riley is the executive director of Weave, the Social Fabric Project at the Aspen Institute. With nearly 2 decades of experience advancing youth development and community well-being, particularly in underserved urban communities, Frederick brings a great and deep passion for rebuilding trust and connection in the American life. Originally from Saginaw, Michigan, his work has taken him to cities across the country, but he remains most proud as his role as beloved son, brother, uncle, and godfather. He's got his priorities straight, doesn't he? Also with us is Mary Thomas, president and CEO of CFLeads, a national network of community foundations advancing community leadership. With more than 25 years in the field, Mary is a powerful advocate for racial equity and champion of grassroots leadership. She is known for her ability to amplify community voices and build cross-sector partnerships and empower community foundations to lead more boldly and inclusively. So please join me again in giving an All-America City welcome to Kyle, Frederick, and Mary. Please come to the stage.
So good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here. Congratulations. And I'm Kyle Hybl, and I can say it is such an honor and privilege to be with you here, Mary and Frederick, because the work you do for community is so extraordinary and impactful. So thank you for everything you do. You know, Doug and Governor Ritter talked about the importance of local democracy and trust. And I know that each of you focuses on that in your work also. Can you tell us why that is so important today, particularly in this climate we're in?
Well, first of all, I want to thank Doug and Matt and Rebecca for having us here. And I don't know that I've ever taken a stage with that kind of a rounding of applause there. Can y'all do that again? Thank you all. I think I forgot the question, but but no, in terms of trust and building community, you know, you can tell by my accent that I'm not from Massachusetts, I'm not from New York. I am from the Carolinas, I'm from Spartanburg. I'm from Spartanburg, South Carolina, the home of BMW. The home of the Carolina Panthers training camp, and the home of the Spartanburg County Foundation, which is where I got my start. I went to the foundation after working at a community center, the Bethlehem Center, located in the heart of the inner city. I was born and raised near my grandparents' farm, so I'm a country girl. But I always tell people, don't let my accent fool you. We know how to get work done. But I grew up on a family farm, and the first philanthropist that I ever met was my grandmother. My grandmother and grandfather, they took care of the neighbors. They, harvested everything that we needed. I don't know if anyone has ever heard of a smokehouse. They put up food, and they did all of those things that really helped shape my perspective on life. And so when I went to the Spartanburg County Foundation, it was this real button-up organization that had lots of assets. They had a lot of capital, a lot of influence, but the community was not a part of the program. And I had served at the Bethlehem Center in the hood for 11 years, helping women and children who did not have access to proper health care, child care programs, just the basic needs of life. And so building community, first of all, for me, was getting close to the people. Brian Stevenson, who is the founder of the Equal Justice Initiative, talks about proximity, and that if we're going to solve the ills of the world, we've got to get proximate to the people that we serve. So I drove into Highland. The first day that I started working at the Bethlehem Center, I drove into that community driving a Peugeot. And the young people rocked my car. They're like, who is this woman coming into the neighborhood driving this car? And so I started working to make sure that we gave the young people a place where they felt like they were a part of the community rather than keeping them out. And as I started to build community with those young people and their parents, they became a part of our organization. And we began to build trust. So building trust for me, bringing it over into the Community Foundation, has always been about listening and trying to gain empathy for where folks are to be able to take that into the boardroom and affect change. So it begins with building trust begins with getting proximate. It begins with centering yourself on the values that you share versus what you don't agree on, and then doing the work. And so I think I'll stop there and maybe kick it back over to you.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you for putting community and community foundation. That's wonderful. Frederick, you can certainly address some of that question as we go forward, but with the Weaver Awards, you're investing directly in neighbors who are weaving the social fabric. What are you seeing on the ground that's giving you hope, and how are these small, locally led projects reshaping communities?
Yeah, so first I think this is being streamed live on Facebook. Is that happening right now? I always start and tell people I have a stalker who sometimes when I get back to work, I get emails or text messages about what I shared. And so I was always craft my words right. So Mom, she's my biggest fan, but also my biggest critic at times. So I always have to make sure that if a question comes through, it's my mother. So, I started this work at Aspen about 5 years ago. And one of the things we heard after traveling around the country and meeting people who were showing up for their neighbors were that, nobody supports our work. We can't write a grant application. Nobody will fund us. And so we said, we got to figure out how to bake this into our work, because we believe that the people who are being affected right now by these issues of polarization and disconnection are people in neighborhoods. You feel the brunt of it. Governor Ritter just said that. And so we started small with the project in Baltimore, where we gave 20 people a $5,000 grant to do work they were already doing. And what we saw is some of the coolest work of bringing people together. A guy named Shorty, whose son was killed, decided it was up to him to bring people together to talk about grief. So he had a barbecue grill. He'd serve baked beans, macaroni and cheese, ribs, and grape soda, his son's favorite meal, and bring 200 people to a park just to have a conversation. It was some of the best work we had ever seen. And what we see happening around the country in big cities and small towns is that these small acts have a ripple effect. Because if Shorty can do it, I can do it too. So he's modeling what it looks like to show up. He's modeling trust. He's modeling what it means to be there and connect with people, much like what you all are doing, because you all showing up here today shows that you are the people that we consider to be weavers. That work that they're doing and what we're seeing on the ground is in direct correlation to the issues we have right now with trust. Trust right now is at an all-time low. 71% of Americans believe if given the opportunity, their neighbor will take advantage of them. And I don't want to live in a community where I can't trust my neighbor, because if a storm rolls through and the lights are out and you got a flashlight and I need it, if I don't trust you, I'm not going to open the door. And so what we see is that people are already coming together. We're helping them with tools and resources to amplify it. But the work that they are doing is inspiring others, because it's so simple to dig in as well.
Great. Thank you, Frederick. And Mary, you talked about doing the work that needs to be done. And at CFLeads, you help community foundations across the country build strong communities. We know that community foundations often hold unique positions of trust. How are they using that trust and their convening power to foster connection and civic capacity in divided or disengaged communities?
Well, one thing about community foundations, I don't know, most of you have a community foundation in your community, hopefully. If not, you have one in your vicinity. For so many years, first of all, the community foundation movement was started in 1914 by Fred Goff out of Cleveland, Ohio. And so he was a banker, and he started this movement. And over time, community foundations have just blown up all over the country, over 950 community foundations. Many of them started using that same banking model, building assets. When I went to the Spartanburg County Foundation, the oldest community foundation in South Carolina, I was the first African American to work there. 7 trustees, all Presbyterian, 1 zip code, and what they were really interested in was amassing assets. It was all about assets. But we have gone through a period from 2005, we're coming on the end of this period, 2025, an era where community foundations have gone through a metamorphosis, where they have moved from assets to impact, they have moved from institution to community, and from independence to collective impact. And what I'm saying here is that community foundations are now beginning to realize that their power is not only in their assets, but it's in the impact that they can achieve when they're working to deploy all of their capitals, working with the community, not doing for the community, but working with the community. Most of the answers that philanthropy seeks to address lies within the community. And the energy that you have in the room, if we could get all community foundations to engage the folks that they're serving in a way where they have inspiration and that they are inspired by the hope that their voices can make a difference, then that's what we're all about. At CFLeads, we're all about helping community foundations unleash their full potential so that we can amplify community voice. Can you imagine amplifying the voices of the people in our country the way we're amplifying your voices in here, to say that we want our voices to be heard, that our voices matter, that our opinions matter, that we've got the answers. They may not be the perfect answers, but we know what's best for our community. We also are very committed to helping community foundations learn how to do resident-led engagement, working across the 3 sectors, public, private, and nonprofit sectors, as well as using data to help inform decisions. And this whole idea around civic health, we're working now to help bring community foundations together to understand that we must work together and find ways that we have shared values rather than what we disagree on. We could sit here and disagree all night that, you know, well, I'm not going to pick on Frederick, but anyway, no. But the point here is that we have more in common than we have apart. But if we can focus on our values and what really matters in terms of access to care, safe places for children to play, being able to go to sleep at night without worrying about someone coming around just with a random drive-by shooting, because we are all working together to build a healthy community, that's what CFLeads is about, is really being that vehicle for change and building the capacity and the leadership of these organizations to be more than asset holders, but being impact and place-based change makers.
Great, thank you. Now, let's switch gears a little bit, and I know in each of your roles, you're supporting efforts that often go unseen, people doing quiet, essential work to hold their communities together. How do you find and uplift these leaders, and how can others do the same?
Yeah, so when we first launched this project at Aspen, we traveled the work was founded by New York Times author David Brooks, and he traveled to 15 cities around the country, big cities, small towns, forgotten about Midwestern cities. And before we'd go, we'd make phone calls and we'd say, who do you trust? Who's the leader in your community? Who is the person who brings people together? And we didn't hear about mayors or the Governor Ritters of communities, but we heard about local people in neighborhoods, a pastor who provided space for homeless people to sleep at night, a barber who would do free haircuts if folks would if young men would read books. We heard stories of a baker who at the end of the night would go around handing out bread to people who he knew was struggling with food insecurity. And we'd go to the town and we'd bring them all together over dinner and we'd say, tell us why you do this. And nobody pulled out a logic model or a data sheet. They did it, they did it because they were at some point they were affected by the issue and they wanted to find a solution. And we said there has to be something to that. With all the issues that we see that are plaguing our country, all the doom and gloom, all we hear about is doom and gloom. But in every city, in every neighborhood in our country, there are these bright spots, right? And so we fished them out. But what we're going to do collectively over the next 4 years is about $25 million. I got a $25 million gift last year, and I'm going to spread it to 75 communities. And I'm going to work with Mary to help community foundations find those people in their communities, and we're going to fund the projects that they're doing. It might be a city that's in the room, but we think the people closely affected or sitting next to the issue should be providing the solutions. They should be the voice in the room making the decisions. And when we do that collectively as big organizations or little organizations, we empower a community to solve their own issues. We give people voice, and we actually can solve some of these big issues that we're talking about on CNN every night.
Great, thank you. And Mary, what would you add to that?
So I have two things, and I'm gonna try to say it very, very brief if I can. First, in 2003, it was a time when the stock market was losing value. And in our portfolio at the Community Foundation, our trustees started to panic because they were seeing a drop in assets. And I was saying to myself, well, when I ran the community center, I know how to raise money. And so I started getting creative about how could we put together a program that would empower the community to do for themselves rather than us doing it for them. And as a result, we put together something called Strengthening Voices, which was to train community leaders how to get engaged in the community, how to use their assets to build community. And it was a Grassroots Leadership Institute development program that was a part of that initiative. And out of that, and I'm giving you a very high-level update here on this, but as a result of this initiative, the Council of Foundations had an annual award called the Robert W. Scrivener Award after the first founder of the Rockefeller Brothers Fund. And I remember going to these large conferences with 2,000 and 3,000 people, and they would give the Scrivener Award out to a philanthropist, and they would get $10,000. And I would sit there and say, wow, that must feel really good to be recognized for your work like that. Well, in 2003, I was named the Robert W. Scrivener Award winner. I was the first African American. I was the first African American in the history of the council to receive the Robert W. Scrivener Award. It came with a $10,000 gift. And I said to the audience that evening, Franco Harris, bless his soul, he was there. There were a lot of celebrities there. But anyway, 3,000 philanthropists there. In my acceptance speech, I said, if Mr. Montgomery, the founder of the Spartanburg County Foundation, could start a foundation with $10,000, surely I could use my $10,000 to perpetuate a vision of leadership that would outlast me. So I took the $10,000, my prize money that I could have went to Cancun with, and I gave it back. I gave it back to the Community Foundation and started the Mary Thomas, it was the Mary Thomas Award for Civic Leadership and Community Change. Well, and I thought I had lost my mind. I gave my money away. But anyway, the community matched that $10,000. And today, that fund at the foundation is well over $200,000. And my board members, because I did that, my board members at the time created the Mary Thomas Award. So every year for the last 20 years, I have a committee, and we scout the committee, the community, to see who is doing the work. We're looking under the radar. These people are doing the work. They're not looking for recognition. And we have a selection committee that finds these people, and we give them a $5,000 award out of my fund. And we have awarded 20 individuals in the last 20 years with the Mary Thomas Award. So that's my legacy. But more importantly, the Courage Awards has recently been announced, and for anyone in America that's doing good work, you can be nominated for the Courage Award and get $20,000. And so I hope you'll plug into that, go on your website, look up the Courage Awards. It's funded by the MacArthur Foundation, the McKnight Foundation, United Way Worldwide, CFLeads is a part of that, and we're sourcing community foundations to help find individuals who are doing this work, and you can get up to $20,000 through the Courage Awards.
Now, each of you has touched on the power of philanthropy in this, and what would it take to shift how philanthropy understands and funds civic health and belonging, not just as a nice to have, but as a critical foundation for building trust and community resilience?
Yeah, with all the issues that are plaguing our country right now, I think we have to look at civic health and trust as even in line with things like the environment, right? Loneliness and isolation, a report from the former Surgeon General said the loneliness epidemic in this country right now is as bad as smoking 14 cigarettes a day. And so as we see our civic health and trust and all these things, the stats don't lie about what's happening. We will lose our entire country if everybody becomes isolated, if trust begins to continue to dwindle, if our civic health continues to wane. And so as we are thinking about funding schools and roads and the environmental issues, we also have to think about people, because it's people within those systems that move our country forward. And if they don't trust each other, if they don't understand each other, if they can't come together and sit in a room next to each other because one person voted this way and the other person voted that way, we will lose our country. And so we have to begin to think about this issue of our civic health as just as important as our infrastructure, as our country's infrastructure. Trust is this silent infrastructure that holds our country together. Everything we do in this country is based on trust. It is. Everybody in this room got in the air to fly here, or most of you did, right? You trust that your pilot didn't get drunk at the bar. You trust that he's actually they're actually a pilot, right? But you don't trust the person who lives next door to you. How crazy is that? And so as we think about those issues, we have to think about that infrastructure as just as important.
Great, thank you, Frederick. Mary, what would you add?
So I think we will always have issues. I think you could put a bucket up here and we could have 100 issues in here. But I think it's going to boil down for me to engagement. Engagement at every level, you know, at city council, county council, and we talk about philanthropy in the boardroom. the more we are engaged, I hope that we'll begin to see a shift in these boardrooms, in our philanthropic organizations, where the boards are truly representative of the people they serve. Because the boardroom is where the decisions are made, and if you're not around the table, I mean, it's going to keep perpetuating what you've been getting. And so either we change the makeup in the rooms where the decisions are being made, or we show up at every meeting saying, I got a question. It's accountability and it's engagement and demanding for results that matter and not relenting. That's my thing there.
Thank you, Mary. Now, this may be risky in this crowd, but I would like you to join me in thanking them for their wisdom and passion this evening. Mary, Frederick, thank you very much. Oh, yeah. We would also like to take a selfie.